We are on page Chavtet Amud Aleph, page 29A3. Okay? For those of you who are following in the art scroll. Hold on one second. Nathan, let me just prop this up. There you go. Okay. Tanu Rabbanan. Mishacharav Habayit Barishona, when the first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, Nitkabtzu kitot shel pirchei keuna u'maftechot ha'echal biyadan. They had groups and groups of the young Kohanim, and the keys to the Hechal, to the sanctuary, to the Beit HaMikdash, were in their hands. Ve'alu legaga Hechal, and they went up to the roof of the Hechal. Ve'amru lefanav, and they said in front of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono shel Olam, Ho'il ve'lo zachinu liot gizbarim ne'emanim, because we did not merit to be trustworthy guardians. Yiyu maftechot mesurot lecha. We want to give back the maftechot, the keys back to you. Uzirakum klape mala. They threw the keys up to the heavens, and a miracle occurred. V'yatztak in pisat yad v'kibaltan mehem. And what seemed to be like a palm of a hand caught the keys or took the keys from them and ascended into the heavens. Obviously, it doesn't mean that God's hand came down. It's saying that there was something that they saw which looked like a pisat yad. God gave them the ability to see this miracle, so that they could see that God was listening to them, and accepted their so to speak their giving of the keys back. V'kibaltan mehem, and received it from them. V'hem kafzu, and these young Kohanim, they jumped from the roof of the Beit HaMikdash. V'naflu letoch ha'ur, and they threw themselves into the fire of the Beit HaMikdash. Crazy. Ve'alehem konen Yeshayahu Hanavi. On them, Yeshayahu said in the Kinah, Masa gechizayon malach efo ki alita kulach lagagot. This prophecy that he was communicating to them. You want to send up a plastic knife? Maybe they want to, just so they can cut the donuts. Yeah. Thank you, honey. So Yeshayahu said a prophecy. Nathan. Slower. Masa gechizayon malach efo. So this prophecy about gechizayon, the valley of chizayon, of prophecy or of vision, malach efo ki alit kulach lagag. What happened that every one of you has now gone up to the rooftops? Tishuot milea irhomiyah kirya aliza chalalayich lo chalalechev lo miten milchama. This city that used to be so full of happiness, so full of energy, right? All the people that died from it, well, not all, but the ones that were killed from this case they were not killed by the sword, and they were not casualties. They didn't happen in the war. Who's it referring to? It's referring to the Kohanim that literally took their own lives because they did not want to be captured by the Romans. One of the questions that gets asked is, how were they allowed to do this? Right. Is a Jew allowed to commit suicide? They're not allowed to. Right. So what was this idea that the Kohanim were able to decide that they were going to throw themselves, from the roof of the Beit HaMikdash into the fire beneath? And the answer actually is something that we come across not over here, but in Masechet Gitin, where we see, it doesn't say over here that the Kohanim did this. It says the groups, the kitot of Pirchei Kehuna. Pirchei means the young Kohanim. Later on, when we start talking about about the Churban in Gitin, so the Gemara relates that there were countless stories of how young people were forced by the Romans to do acts of Gilui Arayot, to be with the Romans were very famous for this orgy-like culture where they would take advantage sexually of the slaves, force the slaves for their own energy, to be able to, for their own excitement, to be able to interrelate with each other, and obviously that was something that wasn't that was not allowed. That's adultery. And on adultery, there's a halacha of yihereg v'al ya'avor, right? So what they were doing was they were just getting to that place before it happened, and that's why only the pircheki, who are not only the young ones that were choshesh, that the physically driven Romans would take advantage of, they were the ones that did this. But the rest of the Kohanim, we don't see that the same thing happens. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam. Amen. Also, Hakadosh Baruch Hu responds mikarker kir vishoa el hehar. Over here, we take the word mikarker kir, usually means to rip down a wall, to destroy the wall. Over here, we're saying it as he's crying. Mikarker could also mean that someone is crowing or crooning. Mikarker kir is singing. He's crying over the wall of the western wall, so to speak. Vishoa el hahar, and he's experiencing like a mourning over hahar, over the mountain. Which mountain? We're talking about Har Zion, the Har Habayit that Hakadosh Baruch Hu was forced to destroy because of the Jewish people's actions. The Mishnah continued and said, "Mishenichnas ad Av mima'atim b'simcha." When Av comes in, we decrease our simcha. Amar Rav Yehuda b'reder Rav Shmuel bar Shelat, Mishmei de Rav. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav Shmuel bar Shelat, the son of Shelat, Mishmei de Rav, in the name of Rav. Okay? Kishem shemishenichnas Av mima'atim b'simcha. In the same way that when Av comes in, we decrease our joy, kach, so too, mishenichnas Adar marbin b'simcha. Also in Adar, we increase our simcha when Adar begins. Okay, what are we saying over here? Okay, and ask the Gemara, why are you telling me this? What's the point? Rav Papa explained that there was actually a practical ramification to this. Hilkach bar Yisrael deitle dina b'hadei nochri. If a Jewish person has a court case against someone who's not Jewish, lishtamit mineh, let him try and wiggle out of it. Be'av, in the month of Av, the riyah mazaleh, that his mazal, the mazal of a Jew, is in a negative place. The limtzi nafshe ba'adar, and let him, suddenly turn up for jury duty. Let him come up in court during Adar, the bari mazaleh, because his luck is strong during the month of Adar. So there is a practical ramification to this element, to this concept, this idea of Av being a time of sadness and Adar being a time of joy. It's not just that, it actually goes further. Because the Mishnah, when the Mishnah told us what it said, all it said was, be happy, be sad. It doesn't say anything about the mazal of a Jew. Like one could have understood that the reason why you're sad in Av is because bad things happened, right. Past. The reason why you're happy in Adar is because good things happened, we were saved. But the Gemara is telling you, in the name of Rav Papa, no. The reason why you're happy or sad is because the nature of that month is eternally that way. So in this moment, we're in a time of destruction, of Churban, if we're living in Av. And in this moment, we're in a time of salvation and of strong mazal if we find ourselves in Adar. The Gemara brings one statement after the next here from the same trifecta of Rav Yehuda, Berei, Rav Yehuda, the son of Rav Shmuel bar Shelat, in the name of Rav. So what else did he teach us? Latet lachem acharit v'tikva. That the pasuk says that the reason that it's following what we read earlier, right? So we read earlier about the destruction being associated with Av. So here the Gemara brings that the Rav Yehuda, the son of Rav Shmuel bar Shelat, says in the name of Rav that at the end of all the negative prophecies in Yirmiyahu, it says latet lachem acharit v'tikva, to give you an end, right? An ending story, v'tikva, and a hope. Take a look down over here. You'll see the full pasuk. You guys see the full pasuk over here? Ki anochi adati, right over here in the margins. Can you see it? Right about half the way down. Torah or hashalem. There? Oh, okay. You see it? Yes. Ki anochi adati, for I know et hamachshavot asher anochi choshev alechem. I know my own thoughts that I'm thinking about you, Ne'um Hashem, says Hashem. Machshavot shalom ve'lo l'ra'ah. My intentions here, even in all this difficulty, is a thought, is machshavot for peace and not for bad. And the reason why I have to bring all this difficulty upon you is in order latet lachem, in order to give you acharit, an ending, v'tikva, and a hope. I remember a little while ago, there was someone that approached me and he said, look, if anyone needs financial advice, him and his father, they're financial planners, and they said if anyone needs, we'll do it as a chesed to help them with what with their situation. So anyway, I've sent them already quite a few people who are literally going to lose their homes, drowning in debt, and he's taught them through lessons he's learned in his own life how to be able to get your finance, how to climb back on top of the horse when your finances really got away from you. How to speak to the banks, what to say to the IRS, what to do over here, what to do that. And he literally has like a formula that he's learned and perfected. And I remember calling the other day, someone was in a very bad state, and I said, please speak to this guy. And he wound up and he sat and spoke to him, and he says, in 2 months he'll be fine. Right? Now, sometimes the thing that he has to tell you is not so pleasant to the ear. He tells a couple, I'm really sorry, but there's no way that your wife is going to have the luxury anymore of staying at home. You need to tell your wife, we're not where we thought we were. It's in a new place. Our new reality is such that you need to get a job to be able to help support this family. In another scenario, he was explaining to them that they needed to garnish their own wages. They needed to basically cut out, before they even took anything home, a certain number so that they'd be able to start the ball rolling and pay down enough that they could get in front of it. Because otherwise they would never get in front of it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying, look, you're looking at this as someone's taking away your money. You're looking at this that your wife is now forced to go out and work. But my intentions here, I know what I'm thinking, God says. My intentions here are for peace. My intentions here are to give you a possibility of later. Acharit, v'tikva. So Rav Yehuda, the son of Rav Shmuel Basher, said in the name of Rav, Elu dekalim v'chlei pishtan. You know what that referenced? That was the dekalim, the date trees, and v'chlei pishtan, and the clothing made out of linen. They got to Bavel, and they were destitute, and they didn't understand how they were going to survive and what they were going to do for food and for clothing and all of a sudden they get to Bavel and they realize that there's a tremendous abundance of date trees and as well of linen garments. They realized that there was this stockpiling almost of goods that were just waiting for them and at cheap prices that they'd be able to kind of survive. And when they saw that they got there and that they were not going to starve to death in a new place with no food supply, it allowed them to recognize that even though they had been driven into Gelut, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had not forgotten them, but had actually prepared for them. The Gemara continues. What's the connection between these things? On the surface, really, only the fact that they were all said by that same trifecta. Rav Yehuda, the son of Rav Shmuel, and the son of Shelat, in the name of Rav. What does the pasuk say? He said, Re'eh reach beni, see the smell, the aroma of my son. Kireach sadeh shebecho Hashem is like the smell of the field that God blessed. What does that mean? This man said, Bereach kireach sadeh shel tapuchim. He smelled the smell of his son that he smelled like a field of apple trees. Now, the Chachamim actually point out that this idea, tapuach, doesn't actually mean apples, according to many people. It means etrogim. And why is it relevant that it means etrogim? Because the Zohar says that the tree of the Etz Hadat was actually an etrog tree. And the reason why we know that it's an etrog tree is because the Torah says that God said that the trees should produce etz pri oseh pri. It should make fruit, but it should also be wood fruit. Etz pri. Literally, it means a fruit tree. But what God had intended was that etz, the wood itself, should have the taste and the smell of the fruit. Okay? That was part of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu had intended for this. So therefore, when he smelled the smell of tapuchim, that's what it was coming to communicate. It was coming to communicate this idea, the sadeh asher Bercho Amunai, and that was the smell of Yaakov. And I always thought that this pasuk, right, this smell, the smell is Bercho Adonai. He'd smelled Esav many times before, and Esav used to wear those clothes. So how come all of a sudden he's smelling Yaakov, and now he makes this comment? The answer is, that which was great about the etrog tree was the fact that not only did it externally produce fruit, but the internal nature of the fruit itself was internal like external. What do we know about Esav? Esav was tzayid befiv. He used to convince his father that he was very righteous, but inside he was rotten. So the smell of Esav could never be the smell of the etrog of Gan Eden, which is inside like the outside. But Yaakov is ishtam. Yoshev Alim, he's a man of truth. So therefore, when Yaakov came to him, he was able to smell on Yaakov the smell of Gan Eden. Shabbat, the Gemara says, Shabbat shechal Tisha B'Av liot b'tocha asurin l'saper l'chabes. The week of Tisha B'Av. So remember, we talked about this. You have from Rosh Chodesh, okay, until Shavua Shechal Bo. So that's mema'atim b'simcha. The first thing we do is we decrease simcha. We don't mourn, but we decrease simcha. From Shavua Shechal Bo start the laws of mourning. Okay? And what are the laws of mourning? One or two of the laws are Shabbat Shechal Shabbat Leot B'Docha Asurin L'Saper L'Chabes. A person is not allowed to take a haircut or to wash clothing. Amar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says, Lo shanu el lechabes l'bosh. When we said that you're not allowed to do laundry, what did we mean? We meant that you could not do laundry, lil bosh, in order to wear. Aval lechabes la'aniach. But if a person is going to wash la'aniach and then put it somewhere on the side, just put it away for after, mutar. So there's no isur just on doing laundry during Shabbat, okay? During the Shabbat, Shechal Bo Shabbat. That's according to the opinion of Rav Nachman. Rav Sheshet Amar, but Rav Sheshet on the other hand says, no. Right? Afil lechabes la'aniach asur. They made asur even the act of laundering, even if it's not that you have the pleasure of wearing freshly laundered clothes. Amar Rav Sheshet said, Teda, let me prove it that this is the case, that you're not allowed to do laundry even if you're not going to wear it now. Debatli katzri debe Rav, because in Rav's house, the people who used to do the laundry, they had time off during this time. If you were allowed to do laundry, just not allowed to wear it, then they should have been kept busy doing the laundry that would be relevant for after the period. But you see from the fact that Rav sent them home, that even to do laundry with no intention to wear it at the time would be asur. And therefore, what would be the purpose of having them around? They can't do the laundry. The Gemara now comes and says, hold up. Mativ Rav Amnuna says, I don't understand. We bring up Mishnah. The Mishnah says, B'chamishi, on Thursday, mutarim b'nei kvod Shabbat. You're allowed to do laundry because of kavod Shabbat. We've had already this idea a few times, that because of the kavod of Shabbat, you're allowed to do laundry on Thursday. Lemai. What's the reason? Why should you be allowed to do it on Thursday? If you mean to wash and to wear it right now, right, on Thursday, my kavod Shabbatika. There's no kavod Shabbat for you to change into fresh clothes on Thursday. Right? So it must mean, right, if that's the case, it means that you're going to use them on Shabbat, which is the day after Shabbat. Okay? So again, what are we talking about over here? We're talking about a case where Thursday was, let's say, the 8th of Av. Shabbat was the 9th of Av. Friday was the 9th of Av. And Shabbat Friday was the 8th of Av.
Right, the following day, you're skipping a day.
1 second. La'aniach.
Washing Thursday to wear Friday.
On Shabbat, so Shabbat is the 10th. So Friday would have been the 9th. Thursday is the 8th. So you're allowed to wash it on the 8th. If you're then going to wear it on the 10th, which is Shabbat. Okay? And still, what does it say over there? So if that's the case, that the Mishnah is discussing b'chamishim mutarim mipnei kavod HaShabbat, if that's what it's discussing, then you see that lahaniach, that you're going to put it away for after, and still b'chamishi hu d'shari. You're allowed to. Aval Shabbat kula asur, but the entire duration of that week, the entire time of that week, you're not allowed to. Why would you not be allowed to on Wednesday? If you're allowed to during the week of, you're allowed to launder something that you're going to use later, so why Thursday is it mutar? It should be mutar on Wednesday or on Monday. So that proves that Rav Nachman, who held that you'd be allowed to, is not correct, because we have a Mishnah that only says it for Thursday when Tisha B'Av is over, when Tisha B'Av is over on Motzei Shabbat. Okay, the Gemara says, hold up. Maybe there's a way that we could allow Rav Nachman to get along with the Mishnah, and then he's not knocked out. Le'olam lechabes v'lebosh. No, the Mishnah is talking about where you're allowed, in a case where you're going to wash it and wear it on the same day, on Thursday. So the question was, how is that Kavod Shabbat? You're wearing it on Thursday. Gemara says, no, it is Kavod Shabbat. Why? Because he only has one object of clothing. The Amar Rav Asi said in the name of Rav Yochanan, one has only one object of clothing, you're allowed to wash it on Chol HaMoed. So now we're jumping from the week of Tisha B'Av morning to the week of Chol HaMoed, which is happiness. But in Chol HaMoed, you're not allowed to do laundry. And still you see, if someone only has one object of clothing, they're allowed to wash it on Chol HaMoed. So if that's the case, so too over here, if the Mishnah is telling you that if you only have one object of clothing, b'chamishi mutarim mibnei kavod haShabbat, because of kavod haShabbat. Yeah. Now, obviously, you would not be allowed to wash it every day, right? But you'd wash it once, and the Mishnah is telling you that you'd wash it on Thursday because that's the closest day. We'll come to that. Okay. Mitveh. Sorry, Itmar Nami. So this was also, we found this was said as well. So to prove this, Amr Binyamin, Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Binyamin says the name of Rabbi Elazar. Lo shanu el lechabes l'bosh. When do we say you're not allowed to do laundry? That's to do the laundry and to wear it right away. But to put on, to wash the clothing in order to leave it for after Shabbat is mutar. There you're allowed to do it. So we find as well another opinion that says like Rav Nachman, and it seems that Gemara is saying, like, if not for the fact that we concurred with that opinion, we would not find that the halakha was like Rav Nachman. We would not find another Amorah willing to go out on a limb with him against the Mishnah. Okay, the Gemara says, hold up. If that's what you're telling me, let me ask you a question. Metvei asul lechabes lefnei Shabbat. It says that a person is not allowed to. In the Braita, the Braita says a person is not allowed to do laundry l'fnei Shabbat. Afilu la'aniach la'achat Shabbat, even if you're putting it away until after. V'gihut shelanu ki kibush shelahem. And our pressing, i.e., like when you iron clothing, is ki kibush shelahem, similar to the way that they used to do laundry. So not only did we now say that you're not allowed to do laundry during this time, but we're also learning that you're not allowed to do this pressing. We'll see exactly what this means. Okay? So when it comes to linen, there's no problem against pressing during the week. One is led to understand that the reason for that is because even though you are doing the pressing, but the pressing on a linen garment never makes it feel so sharp, because the linen doesn't hold that, the clean look that is given by an ironing, the ironing of an iron. However, when it comes to other clothing, doing the pressing actually is very similar to the freshness and to the rededication of the article of clothing, the same way like when you wash it. So therefore, the Gemara says we learn from this Braita. Specifically that you're not allowed to do laundry during the week of Shabbat, even if you're going to leave it till after. So that knocks out Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Nachman. The Gemara says, Tiyufta. Yes, you're right. It knocks it out. And what are we left with? we're left with this idea that a person is not allowed to do laundry, even if they're not planning on wearing the clothes. You're not allowed to do the act of laundry itself. Let's continue. Shalach Rav Yitzchak bar Giurei mishmei de Rav Yochanan. Rav Yitzchak, the name and the son of Giurei, the name of Rav Yochanan, said as follows: we just said in this Mishnah that when it comes to linen objects actually there's no concept of what's it called, of gihutz by them, because they just don't get they're not refreshed, they're not as clean or crisp as something else. So therefore, en bahem mishum gihutz. Aval asur lelovshan, however, right? You're not allowed to wear them. You're still not allowed to wear them during that week if they have been. So in other words, he's saying that you're not allowed. It's not that it's forbidden to do the pressing, but even though it's not forbidden to do the pressing, to wear them during that week is a problem. Okay, wear linen clothing that was pressed, freshly pressed linen clothing would be asur to wear. It's crisp enough. Okay, and the reason why I told you to wait a minute before is because this is exactly where we kick in. The idea of the linen, which is crisp but not crisp enough. That's where this concept comes from of wearing all the shirts. You wear it for a little bit; it's not dirty. You just wore it. The idea would be if you sweat a little bit in it. But if, let's say, you didn't sweat, but you've removed, that's the way you remove the freshness, you remove the newness. You put it on the floor, you walk on it. It's not dirty. It's not filthy, it doesn't smell, but you remove that newness. And the newness is what we wanted to avoid when you were wearing it. So the Gemara says as follows: it's not gihutz on a regular object of clothing is like the process of cleaning. The other opinions say that the reason why gihutz, ironing, is like cleaning clothing is because back then the heat that they were applying to the clothing was also able to help get out certain stains from the clothing. Okay, which is why we heat clothes when we wash them. Okay. So if that's the case, so we understand as well this idea. So laundering in the end, what are we coming out with? Laundering is asur on that time, even if you're only going to plan to wear it later. Pressing linen, new clothing, also asur, because that's like cleaning. Okay, our pressing is like cleaning. Okay, but when you're pressing linen garments, that's not asur. However, even though it's not asur, you should not be wearing it because it's, as we said, new enough that we don't want you to wear it. Okay? Let's carry on. Amar Rav says, Lo shanu. One second. This idea that we just said, Lo shanu el lefanav. That's only when a person's doing this laundry before Shabbat. Aval acharav, but after Shabbat, you're allowed to do, what's it called? You're allowed to do laundry. So one second. What is that talking about? Right? What does that mean that you're allowed? Of course you're allowed to do laundry after Shabbat. Okay?
Because it's the 10th.
Sorry?
Like we said the 10th, or we said it was still burning, so we withhold from doing things.
That's about the 10th. He's saying more than that. He's saying that up until this point we've talked about the Shavua Shechalbo Shabbat. So let's say Shabbat falls out on Tuesday. So what's the week of Sunday and Monday? Falls out on Thursday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So what Rav said is this idea el lefanav, aval acharav mutar. What happens if the Shabbat falls on Tuesday? What's Wednesday and Thursday? That's also Shabbat shechal. It's also the week of. So he's saying in that case it's mutar, and Shmuel says no. Afil acharav nami asur. So even after the weekend, even after the day of Shabbat, so long as it's within the week, it's still a problem. Now, we never heard that before. We know this law about the 10th having some restrictions, but that there could be an 11th and a 12th and a 13th, we never heard, right? And what does that prove? That just proves that we hold an halacha according to Rav, not like according to Shmuel. The Gemara says, Metve, let's ask a question. Shabbat shechal Shabbat liot b'tocha, asur saper l'chabes. You have a Shabbat, you have a week that Shabbat falls down during the week. You're not allowed to take a haircut, and you can't do laundry. On the Thursday, it's mutar because Shabbat is coming up. Ketza. If the Shabbat falls on Sunday, mutar lechavez kol Shabbat kula. You're allowed to do laundry the entire week. Why? Because everything is after it. What happens if Tisha B'Av falls out on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday? Right? Lefanav asur, beforehand is asur. Le'acharav, after Tisha B'Av passes, mutar. You're allowed. Chal liot be'erev Shabbat. What happens if the Tisha B'Av falls on Friday? Mutar lechabes b'chamishi nekvod Shabbat. You're allowed to wash on the Thursday because of kavod Shabbat. You don't have anything to wear on Shabbat, which will come after Tisha B'Av, so you're allowed to wash on the Thursday for kavod Shabbat. V'im lo kibes b'chamishi. What if he didn't wash on the fifth day, on Thursday? Right? Mutar lechabes be'erev Shabbat min ha'mincha u'lemala. You're allowed to wash it on erev Shabbat on Friday from once we hit mincha and on, because at that point it's already in the lead up to Mashiach, to Shabbat, and therefore we're not going to have the laws of or at least the strictest laws of mourning. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Okay, we'll continue next week, inshallah.